Hello, everyone. I want to play a game that is taking me almost 20 years to perfect.
Saw X, or in other words, Saw 10, released this past weekend in 2023 and is directed by Kevin Greutert, who is also behind such films like Saw 6, Saw 3D, Jezebel, Visions, and Jackals. And this movie is starring Tobin Bell. You can't really have one of these Saw films without the man. Shawnee Smith, Sinove Makodi Lund, Stephen Brand, Renetta Vaca, and Michael Beach. Bet the best thing that he's able to do is just Beach. It's a Barbie joke. God, let's just move on. This 10th entry in this Saw franchise is actually a prequel to the whole damn thing, where we see the origins of when John Kramer found out that he had brain cancer, but we get a little bit more backstory with him in trying to find ways to cure the disease. And it looks like he may have found an experimental drug and procedure, but he has to travel all the way to Mexico to do so. But after the procedure, he finds out that the entire thing was a hoax, and they've taken all of his money. And you almost feel a little bad for the scammers because they picked the wrong person to fuck with. So in the later Saw films, they tried to provide us a little bit of the origin and the backstory of John Kramer and how he came around to becoming this tinkerer, this architect who develops all of these torturous devices, and how he developed the mindset of the mission that he is on to put other people in these live or die situations, and if they have that survival instinct in them, they'd be able to escape and they'd be able to live out the rest of their lives with, of course, a couple of the scars that they got from the game. But they were all done in very, very terrible flashbacks, where it's definitely, you could tell, like, we're on a studio here. There's a green screen backdrop, this isn't the actual setting. It's almost like this is a stage show, and the stage setting, the appliances, the tables and everything, it's all for placement. This isn't actually a realistic set. We're here getting the cliff notes of how you became the Jigsaw Killer. This film actually goes into the origins of John Kramer. Since the very first film, we would hear about this guy named John Kramer, and he's doing all these terrible things, but we really had no sense of who this person is. When you think of a horror franchise, eventually we would get the origin of where Freddy Krueger came from, or Jason Voorhees and why he does the thing he does. Mike Myers and how he just flipped a switch one day and murdered his sister. But we never got that until now, and that's what makes this film by far the best entry in this entire Saw franchise, which, after watching the movie, I actually sat there with my hands up in the air like, really? Really? It took almost 20 years for them to finally get this fucking right? Wow! And going into it, I would see the Rotten Tomatoes score and the audience score, and they were both extremely high, like double the amount of what the best ratings were for anything else in the original entries of this franchise. And I just couldn't believe it. I absolutely could not believe it. But they're all so goddamn true. This film was excellent. Does it have a couple of cheesy performances and cheesy happenstances and circumstances? Yes, of course it does. It's a Saw film. You have to have stupid shit like that. But the take that this film has that puts it above and beyond all of the other entries is that this is not a horror film. And the other entries in the franchise, it's all about blood, and it's all about bones cracking and what devices we could put the people in. Here, it is not about that. It is about this man's story of trying to save his life and trying to maintain that hope inside of him. He's an old man. I mean, even if he does get his disease cured, he's still not going to be living for that much longer. But there's that craving, that survival instinct that he has to try to stay on this earth as long as he possibly can. And to see these swindlers and to see these scammers just dupe him out of that hope, you immediately latch on to this man who in the previous entries is seen as the villain and seen as just a crazy person who tortures a bunch of people. Here, no, we're actually behind him. Yeah, I want to see you find these people, tranquilize them, take them back to a warehouse somewhere, tie them up to a machine, and have them fight for their fucking lives. I want to see that. And when we finally do get to those traps, they're well thought out and they're not just there to be there to torture someone. They're actually ingenious traps that kind of relates to the way that they duped this person. Each one kind of has their own little interaction with John Kramer when he's originally thinking that he's going in for the surgery. Each one of these little traps has a way of kind of taking that interaction and throwing it back in their face. And then Amanda also shows up in here. That was a great little surprise. I had no idea that it was happening. And we get some redeeming moments with her too, because we only saw her, well, we saw her in the first one in the trap, and then the second one, she was the hidden assailant to John Kramer, making sure everything happens according to plan in that trap. And then in the third one, she just goes crazy again and just comes up with traps that just kill people, which goes away from what John was trying to do and giving them a fighting chance. Here she's just setting up devices to have these people torture themselves before they eventually die. In this film, she's redeemed. We see her coming to an understanding of these traps and why John is doing what he is doing, and why he's going to pass that along to her. And this franchise does get to a point where you're like, okay, you're just picking random people that did you wrong. You don't have any creed or mission statement here. You're just being a creepy motherfucker. Here, we see him come up with an idea for a trap for a certain person, but then it's just a dream. It's a dream sequence. Kind of little spoiler, that poster with the eyeball machine and it's going in the X formation, that's actually a dream sequence that never happens. Which pissed me off because it happens right away in the beginning because we have to have some type of trap. It's a Saw film, right? But that anger that I felt definitely went away because I was really digging the story. Saw 10 is fantastic. It's one of my favorite films of this year. And I never thought I would have said that about a Saw film when I'm thinking about the ranking of like all the films that I've loved this year. I never would have thought that Saw could potentially be in my top 10 favorites. This is the Saw film that we needed like 10 years ago when this franchise was getting going. I mean, hell, this could have easily been the only entry in this franchise and it would have been fantastic. But this whole film, this whole experience, I feel was very redeeming for Tobin Bell, who I'm sure was just craving for more time of getting to tell the story of John Kramer, and we never got that because the man died in episode 3, and then we only got just like cheesy flashbacks for the rest of the franchise. Here, he actually delves into the character and dives into the emotional points of this character in the moments of his life that were the most crucial. I can't believe I'm saying this, but even if you're not a fan of this franchise, Saw X, you should see. This film is fantastic. And know that even though it is Halloween, it's spooky month, this isn't a horror film. This is a drama. This is one man's fight to stay alive, and then he's done wrong by a couple of people, and he's out for vengeance on those people. So it's about hope, it's about vengeance, it's a fantastic movie, and you should see it. I'm going to give Saw X 4 out of 5 Blu-rays.
I like it a lot.
So guys, if you've seen Saw X, what did you think about it? Or if you've never seen it before and you stumbled across because of this video, then comment below and let me know what you thought about it. And as always, if you like what you see here, if you like my take on movies, then hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that bell so you know the next time I'm releasing my next movie review. So guys, I will see you next time on the channel, but in the meantime, be well, be good to each other, and go watch a movie. Take care, guys.